So good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to begin today with a sincere apology for last week's technical problems. I got a new computer and I was unable to get online to conduct the webinar. So my sincere apologies, and thank you everyone for being flexible and moving the program to today. We are on schedule to have the next webinar next week as planned, and I have, as you can see, worked out my technical difficulties, or at least I think I have. Today we're going to go over business plan, the management section, and marketing on a shoestring. I love marketing on a shoestring, and I think the management section will help you define kind of the structure of how these businesses are going to operate. So where we're going to start is the homework section is pages 54 to 59. It's due next week. If you need more time for it, it's not a big deal, especially because I'm running a week late on this. With this section, we ask you to take a look at the different positions that you're going to be filling within the organization from a management level only. We'll be covering personnel next week. These are just management titles. So for each one of them, we're going to do kind of the same exercise over and over and over. And I believe I've given you in your workbooks enough space for 5 or 6 different positions. And you will be doing this again for the same thing for each one. We'll need the title, a listing of what their primary responsibilities are. So if you have a general manager, what is that general manager going to be responsible for on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis, almost like a job description. We ask you to take a look at what required experience you're going to require of an individual that's going to apply for that position, if there's any required certifications and or required education of that position, the annual salary and any benefits that you're going to be offering, and what the expense of those benefits are. So you're going to do that for positions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think there's 6. And then we also ask you to take a look at the organizational chart. So I have an arbitrary title there of director. You can put whatever title, director, general manager, coordinator, whatever is going to work best for your organization, and then fill in the other positions that you're going to have and how that structure is going to flow. For some of you that are doing smaller enterprises, you may only have 1 employee that is the jack of all trades, and for others you may have a more complex management system for the bigger operations that we're working with. So you'll really have to pick what's going to work best for you. And this is another one of those areas where your executive director or the president of your organizations might need to put some input, especially when it comes to salaries. If you're not sure what fair market values are for different salaries in different industries, you can send me an email and I can do some research for you to get that information based on where you are. But this section is really just about kind of laying out that management plan. And that's it for the homework. It's a pretty simple assignment this week. That's the good news. The fewer positions have, the less work you're going to have to do. We're going to spend the bulk of our session today talking about marketing on a shoestring. This has been given a lot of different titles over the years. I happen to like shoestring when I just realized that I can't spell and have showstring. But there are some common denominators about all shoestring-based marketing. First and foremost, it's always low cost. These are not your big, expensive billboards, TV ads, radio ads, large-scale print and high-volume magazines. These are low-cost tactics. They also tend to be relatively high reward. And what we mean by high reward is that they have some of the highest return on investment for time and money spent. The other component of them that's pretty common in just about all of these tactics is there's a high level of personal involvement, whether it's from your personnel, from your volunteers, or from you yourself. So although it is low cost, high reward, the staffing time to actually take care of some of these things can be pretty extensive. There are 3 different types of shoestring marketing. First and foremost are the more traditional methods. Those are going to be your networking, seminars, referral networks, strategic alliances. There's quite a few different options under the traditional. Internet is a new form of shoestring marketing because a lot of the cost items associated with internet marketing have become very expensive, whether it's pay-per-click for search engine optimization, high visibility replacement ads, redirect display ads that you'll see. I don't know if you ever noticed that when you view something online at Amazon.com, 3 days later when you're reading an article in the Huffington Post, there's an ad on the side for the item that you looked at. That's called redirect marketing. And a lot of those tactics have gotten very expensive. So there's a big resurgence into utilizing the internet from a shoestring perspective. And then there's the guerrilla tactics. These are some things that are a little bit off the wall, can be very effective, tend to have a short shelf life. So we're going to go over examples of each kind, and some will work for some of you and some will work for others, and hopefully you'll have a selection of things that you can incorporate into your individual organizations. So when it comes to the traditional, what we're going to look at is the fine art of networking, the concept of public relations, how to develop referral networks, strategic alliances, the benefits of giving seminars and demonstrations, direct sales efforts, in-house events, and word of mouth. So where we're going to start is really networking. And there are 2 basic types of networking. There is the professional and the social. So whether you're doing professional or social networking, either way, the whole point of the exercise is really to build long-term relationships with potential customers and those referral sources. Although networking is probably one of the greatest sources of high-quality customers to a business, and that they tend to spend more, purchase more frequently, they are also the customers that take the longest to convert and require the most amount of time from the person who's engaged in the relationship. From a professional standpoint, you tend to do your networking at different professional organizations, whether it's chambers of commerce, industry associations, either for the industry that you're working in or the industry that you're selling to. It can also be at trade shows, any place where other business people go to gather. The social side of networking is taking a look at some of the events in your community and in your life that could possibly be parlayed for business purposes as well. And so those are really community events that can really be anything from a town fair to a gala fundraiser that you're having in your community. There are other nonprofit events that you can attend to meet potential donors, to meet other business people, and see what's going on in your community. And then there are social gatherings. A lot of times people that are in sales and marketing completely underestimate that circle of influence they have within their own life. And that's friends and family and friends of friends and family. So when you're going to somebody's house for a cocktail party and you meet 2 or 3 new people, you have to kind of look at them and say, you know, yes, we could possibly have a great social relationship, but is there a business opportunity there as well? Networking is considered a fine art. It is something that is a skill that can be developed. If you're shy, you tend to not want to do it. But the key is going to be in practice and remembering that you're looking at building relationships. I will say over the last 10 years that I've been networking in the Albany market, some of my closest friends are people that I met through professional events. And that's because they really sought out the relationship component of it. It can't just be a take, take, take. It has to be a give and take type of relationship. And as long as that's what you're building, it can become a little bit easier. But the most important thing with networking is that if it's an important part of your business marketing model, that you actually get out there and do it. You can talk about it all you want, but until you're actually out there doing it, it's not going to do anything for you. Next up is public relations. And this is really the fine art of harnessing the media for free publicity. So you can use the media to place advertisements, or you can use the media to become the story. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can do it through putting out press releases, having grand openings. You can publish articles, you can write a column, you can become a quoted expert, you can become the subject of an article, and you can also include yourself in internet media coverage. The key thing with anything that's public relations based is that you make sure that you have a plan. If you need to send press releases to media to build interest in what's going on, you need to know what those press releases, the content of them is going to be. You need to know the frequency that you're going to send them out, and you need to have a media list that they're going to go out to. And when you're building that media list, you need to make sure that the usual suspects are on there, the larger place local medias, your TV stations, your radio stations, and your larger newspapers. But don't underestimate those community publications. There are a couple in this region that if you send them a press release, they will publish it every time. Don't forget the internet media. There are blogs, there are industry associations, there are online news feeds, whether it's the Huffington Post or Slate, Yahoo. They all put content out into the marketplace. If you get your messaging, if you include them on your media list, your odds of getting picked up increase. The other group that you want to make sure that you include in your media list are all professional organizations that are in your market, as well as the professional organizations that you're selling to, so that it's important that they're aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Once you've developed your public relations plan, the key is just putting it out there. If you need to send press releases quarterly, you have to write them, you have to send them. It only works if you put yourself out in the marketplace. If you're looking to ever become a source to reporters or the subject of an article, there actually is a warehousing site for that now online. It's called helpareporter.com, HELPAREPORTR.com. You register on the site, you list off your areas of expertise, and then reporters can search you based on what they're writing on. And if they need somebody to quote or an idea for an article, they will contact you directly, and that can increase your exposure quite a bit. Referral networks is something that a lot of times people confuse with strategic alliances. So referral networks are actually networks of people and organizations that are going to refer customers to your business, typically with a reward, although not always. There should be some type of gain to them. The referral networks can consist of prior customers, networking contacts that you have, professional contacts, vendors, circles of influence, and of course friends and family. The ones that are going to refer you without an actual gain to you are those that have actually done business with you in the past and are really faithful in your ability to meet the needs of the referral. They might be your networking and professional contacts that you've developed a long-term relationship with, as well as your circles of influence and prior customers. Those that are typically looking for a gain tend to be your prior customers. And when one customer is referring another to your business, they've kind of been trained by the marketplace that they should be rewarded for that activity. And the rewards can really be anything that you want them to be, whether it's a coupon for a future purchase, a future discount. Sometimes people give them gifts. It really depends on what's appropriate to your individual business. Strategic alliances differ from referral networks in that these are groups of complementary businesses and or professionals that share kind of that same customer base. When you're putting together a strategic alliance, sometimes you'll go with exclusivity, and other times you'll have 2 to 3 people in each category, depending on the frequency of the need of your customer base for them to be referred out. when you're looking at developing a strategic alliance, you want to make sure that, first and foremost, that it's beneficial to all parties. You want it to be relatively loose and informal. You don't want a whole bunch of legal contracts when it gets into how you're referring customers back and forth. There needs to be a likelihood of a shared customer need. And you also need to make sure that the relationship is reciprocal, so that you're not the only person who's referring customers to one another. I've provided some examples of industries and businesses that work well within strategic alliances. So typically, if you have a real estate agent, they tend to have a couple of providers in each one of the categories that they can refer out to their clients. And they almost always have a home inspector, an insurance agent, a banker, and an attorney that they can refer you to in the home buying process. Printing companies, on the other hand, tend to work well with graphic designers, marketing firms, advertising agencies, and mail houses. So when they're printing marketing materials for their clients, if they need graphic design, they can send them there, and graphic designers, when they need printing, can send the printing to the printer. So it works pretty well in a symbiotic relationship. Hairdressers, kind of think of that spa environment, right? They work with nail technicians, makeup artists, massage therapists, and estheticians. Any one of those can share a clientele, and because the certification and licensing is different for each one of those fields, they're not likely to carry all of those certifications. So there's a good possible relationship between sharing clientele back and forth there. And of course, wedding planners are well known for working with florists, venues, caterers, and bridal shops. And it's important that, again, they have a base of people that they can refer out to and a group that can refer in. Now, printing companies, wedding planners, and real estate agents tend to work on strategic alliances that are not exclusive in nature, and that they don't only have one provider in each category. Hairdressers, which is a little bit more personal services, tend to work within an exclusivity component. They have one nail technician that they're referring their clients to, and they're the only hairdresser that nail technician is referring clients to. But strategic alliances can be a great source of building a client base by sharing a group of customers with similar businesses, but non-competitive. For anyone who's offering professional services, seminars and demonstrations are a great opportunity to showcase your professional skills and knowledge, and/or the use of a particular product or service. When it comes to the seminars, it's a great way to build name recognition and build credibility for you in the marketplace. It also builds your status as a market area expert or a content area expert. In my experience, when you're giving a seminar, it's really important to make sure that you practically tell them everything that they need to know. On average, in any group of 10 people that are attending a seminar, 2 will take the information and do it on their own. 2 will walk away and never think of the concept again, and the other 6 are likely to contact you for help. For those of you that are selling products, demonstrations are a great way to showcase that product. The most common type of demonstration that we see in the marketplace right now is really food tastings for food products and beverage products. However, kitchen appliances, outdoor equipment, and some of those unusual products do well under the demonstration model, whether it's the ShamWow or the Snuggie. When you're thinking of demonstrations, as almost cheesy as it sounds, you really have to think of that infomercial or that QVC or home shopping network segments that show you how to really highlight a product on video. If you have a product that you're selling, there's nothing to prevent you from doing a couple of demonstrations in-house with a video camera, especially with the wonderful technologies that are available at a low cost, and putting that up on YouTube or sharing it out with potential customers. Direct sales is really the concept of selling directly to the potential customer. Any organization with a sales team, this is what they're supposed to be doing. They typically start with a lead list. From that lead list, they'll work into cold calls. And cold calls are really picking up the phone, calling someone blind to find out if they will meet with you to discuss their potential need for your product or service. That qualifying appointment is the key component of any direct sales process. It's where you go in and you do a lot of listening. You find out what the needs of the customer are, and you sell your product or service based on the needs of the customer. You have to make sure that you do utilize active listening techniques and that you don't find yourself in a position where you are just benefit barfing every possible thing your product or service can do. You really need to tailor that appointment to selling strictly to the needs of the customer. Following a qualifying appointment, if it goes well and you see an interest, typically there is a proposal development. And really the only part of a direct sales process that truly counts is closing the sale. And this is usually where most salespeople fail, is they do great all the way through the proposal development and they don't do the follow-up necessary to close the sale. It's important that you're prepared for all parts of the sales process. So before the sales call, it's really important to do your research. Review their website, look up recent press, use LinkedIn to review the person that you're calling and see what they have to say, who they're connected to, what do they have to say about what they do for their job. And then prepare a list of questions to review and ask the person both during the cold call and then during the qualifying appointment. During the sales call, it's going to be important that you build a rapport with the individual, that you ask open-ended questions related to the solution that you're actually selling. Listen to what the potential customer is telling you. Many times they will tell you how to sell to them, and it's really important that you pay attention to that. And always avoid that benefit barfing. Just because your product or service does 100 things, only 10 of them may be relevant to the person that you're selling to. So pick and choose the benefits that you're going to highlight of your product or service very carefully and related to their needs. And then after the sales call, it's really important to make sure that you follow up with your prospect as you agreed upon. If you say you're going to call them on Wednesday, you need to call them on Wednesday. If something comes up and you cannot make that phone call, you need to make sure that either somebody else does or you shoot them off an email explaining to them that you've had an emergency, you're not in the office, I know I was supposed to contact you today, I will call you tomorrow. And then you have to make sure you make that phone call the next day. Follow-up is the key to closing the sale. You can also host in-house events at your locations, and you can host those events either for your organization or for somebody else's, depending on what the core of your business is. And when you're hosting events at your location, for other organizations, you want to make sure that the foot traffic that you're going to build is within the key customer markets of your business. And then if you're hosting them for yourself, hopefully you'll have the right customers that come in through the door. 5 of the most common in-house events that you'll see at businesses are fundraisers, open houses, seasonal guests, trunk shows are very popular in retail, and expo and craft fairs. When you're looking at bringing events into your business, it typically works best for restaurants and event venues, anyone that's doing retail, whether it's individual stores or shopping centers. It works really great for the seasonal guests, whether it's the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus. If you're doing personal services, having an open house or a fundraiser, and professional services tend to do well with fundraisers and expos and craft fairs, typically if they team together with other people in their building. The whole point of in-house events is to drive traffic to a location for a group of people that would typically not go there but would benefit from learning about your business. You want them in your space, you want them seeing and touching and trying the things that you're selling. And one of the most common shoestring marketing tactics is really word of mouth. And this is utilizing the recommendations of existing customers to bring in new business. And this can really be a driving force for new customers. However, there are some downsides if you fail to perform when it comes to word of mouth. You've heard phrases before like there is no such thing as bad press, and I completely disagree with that, especially with the advent of the internet and rating sites. Now, word of mouth activities has really changed in the last 5 years with the advent of rating sites like Yelp and Google Places. In today's world, the number of people that are likely to share their experience is probably twice as many as it was 5 years ago. In addition to that, they're more likely to post negative experiences than they are positive experiences, which kind of goes directly against the customer service thought processes and guidelines that only 4% of your customers will complain. But when given a relatively anonymous platform where they can put their complaint out to the world through social media or a rating site, they're much more likely to do so than if they have to contact you directly. So it's critical in today's market that you manage not only your local reputation, but your online reputation. And just remember that word of mouth can work both ways. There's positive and there's negative. I think I mentioned this in our day-long event. You have to remember that when people have an experience, you deal with businesses every day as a consumer. And most of the time, the experience is what we would consider negligible. It's not something that registers on our radar at all. Those are the forgotten experiences. For most of us, if we have a really outstanding experience, we're going to go out of our way to tell a few people. And then there's a segment of the market, and it's a growing segment with the internet, that if they have a bad experience, they're going to make new friends so that they can tell them all about it. So when it comes to word of mouth, it's important that you have a strategy for managing your reputation both in your community and online, and that you're aware of the changes in how consumers are actually sharing that word of mouth with other potential customers. The other key of word of mouth is that word of mouth only works after you've been in business for a little while. Until you have customers, there's nobody who's talking about you, whether it's positive or negative. Next up, we have the internet shoestring concept. Now, everybody's heard of social media and how to utilize social media for marketing, but there are many other ways to utilize the internet on a shoestring basis for marketing your business. There's blog posting, viral videos, email blasts, online newsletters, podcasting, utilization of testimonials, and those online review sites that we just talked about. So when it comes to social media, this is probably the most common shoestring component to any small business marketing tactic. There are 6 primary social medias in the marketplace that are currently being used in this capacity on a regular basis by the bulk of the businesses. The great thing about the internet and the horrible thing about the internet is that it's forever changing. And I would imagine that at least one of these will fall by the wayside, and we'll have 3 new ones that hit the list in the next 3 years. It's just kind of the evolution of social media. I think everybody remembers MySpace. That doesn't exist anymore for all intents and purposes. The currently still the most used social media in the US is Facebook. Now, with Facebook, all of your business pages are actually linked to personal pages, which can be a little bit difficult in a business setting, especially in a business setting without one specific owner. There needs to be somebody that owns the Facebook page for the business, and that's going to have to be an internal decision. But in the event that somebody should leave your organization, you need to transfer said Facebook page. Facebook, in addition to their free postings, also offers pay-per-clicks and pay-per-view advertising based on the data mining that they do of the posts on the social media. And if you're not familiar with that, basically anytime somebody writes something down through keywords, they can force an ad on their page when they're viewing it, which can be great and can be horrible. They do limit views of your content that you're posting, and it's their algorithm that decides who's following you sees what you've posted. Now, they do have options where you can pay for increased viewing, but what that really means is that if you have 1,000 people following you and only 700 are going to see what your post has to say, and it's a relatively random selection of your followers, it means that your posts have to be done more frequently than they would have been done in the past. to make sure that all 1,000 are eventually seeing what you're putting out there. And Facebook is probably one of the better medias for retail, manufacturing, socially based, community-based, and technology-based businesses. Twitter is a social media that is based really on 140-character posts. What's great about that is that they're short, so they're relatively easy to write. And you can also include links in those posts that either take you to a video, your website, a particular call to action, your Facebook page, wherever you want them to go. Twitter still allows the visibility to be entirely based on your followers, which is great. But there definitely needs to be a call to action on your Twitter account. If you only have 140 characters, you need something to take them to the next step. Nobody's going to purchase anything or go to your website unless they're engaged. Twitter is typically most used by professionals, retailers, and manufacturers. Whether for retailers, they like to use it for a product of the day. Manufacturers like to use it to highlight a particular product feature. LinkedIn is it really is the professional networking site. It is all about professional topics, professional discussions. Personal information and personal posts are strongly frowned upon. If you post something that isn't considered professional content, your followers will call you out on it publicly. I've seen it happen quite a few times. It also has a really great search engine if you're doing any type of direct sales. If you need to meet a buyer at Walmart through their search engine, you can not only narrow down how you know somebody, but it will give you their name and the pathway to your connection. When using the search engine, I typically don't like to go beyond the second connection. And if you've never been on LinkedIn, it's kind of based on the 6 degrees of separation. So that your first level connections are people that you're directly connected with. A second level connection is someone who you're connected with through somebody that you are directly connected with. So they are a connection of someone that you are connected with, but not directly to you. So it's not hard to reach out to that first connection to ask for the introduction. Once you get beyond that first connection trying to feed your introductions, it can be a little bit more difficult and take a lot of time. They have great discussion groups on just about every type of business topic. So if there's something that you're interested in learning about, you can ask questions in the LinkedIn sphere and other professionals will give you guidance and advice. The other great thing is if you follow other successful professionals that are market area experts in particular items, if you review the posts, which really appear a lot like they do on the Facebook timeline, you can learn a lot of things that you didn't know that you needed to know. Next up are 2 social medias that are almost identical in purpose and functionality, very different in styling. So Instagram is photo-based posting. It is searchable by keywords. The key thing to keep in mind here is that it's owned by Facebook. That's going to matter for 2 reasons. One, it's probably going to be the longer sustaining of the 2 photo-based social medias. And the other key component of that is many of the rules that Facebook has been instituting over the last couple of years for usage and views and that type of thing will eventually find their way into Instagram. Again, also needs to have a call to action with your post. Where Pinterest is a little bit different than Instagram, it tends to have a little bit more of a boutique style and is used more by crafters showcasing something that they've produced than Instagram, which is much more about the personal photos. Last but not least, you have YouTube, which is a video-based posting service. And you can have a personal channel on YouTube where you post all of your videos that can then link through to your website and other social medias. There are paid subscriptions available for additional functionality, and they do have searchable content. YouTube really has become the place for people to post videos related to their business, especially seminar and demonstrations. blog posting is probably one of the most underutilized internet shoestring marketing tactics that is out there. There's a couple of different types of blog postings that you can do. You can have a blog directly on your website. You can post to other people's blogs. You can create a standalone blog page. But what's great about blog postings is, one, it's free. Two, you have to write the content, or you have to quote the content. You have to treat it just as though you were writing a newspaper article. But the content of the article is directly related to your search engine criteria. And when the Google spiders are coming through to rank your website, blogs will increase your ranking organically through a couple of components. One is the fact that it got updated. So anytime you put a new blog post up, it's considered an update to your website. Number two, you have searchable keywords that are included within that post that then just automatically increase your ranking from a credibility standpoint for that website. When you're going to create a blog, it's going to be very important that you actually have a content marketing plan, that you have a schedule of when these posts are going to happen, you have a schedule of the content that you want these posts to be about, and that you have assigned parties to research and write them. It's important to have a goal or mission. So you're writing these blogs, you're posting them. What is the purpose of doing that? Is it because you want your customers to find you on the internet and for search engine purposes? Or are you writing them as a resource for your customer base to refer back to because they've purchased a product or service from you? Make sure that all of your posts are written towards that target audience of your business. If you're writing to teenagers, write in teen speak. If you're writing to adult professionals, make sure that it has an adult professional tone. And make sure that when you're posting your content that you have at least 2 people proof it before it goes online. Once something goes online, if it's filled with typos or it has mistakes, the lovely internet world will be happy to point out every single one of those mistakes that you've made, most of the time with a lot of glee. In addition to blog posting, viral videos have become very popular in the last couple of years, and there are some pretty common denominators to a viral video. Now, although there's no guarantee that a video that you put out there will become viral, there are some things that make viral videos easy to become viral. First and foremost, any viral video, if you go back and watch a couple, either answer a question or evokes an emotional response, whether it's humor, sadness, love, happiness. You know, it does something emotionally to the individual who's viewing it, or it answers a very specific question. It typically involves some type of hot topic that's under discussion, either online or in news media or in the school cafeteria. When you're dealing with hot topics, you kind of have to be a little bit careful from a marketing perspective that if it's a hot topic where people could become offended, that you either are very careful to offend as few people as possible, or that you know what side of the argument you're going to be on. You want to make sure that there's a compelling title to your video and a compelling subtitle. This is what people are going to see if they're searching you on YouTube. Your title is the most searchable part of your video. The subtitle, which is what they read before the More button in the description, is the second most searchable. So those are the keywords that YouTube is using to search your video amongst the crowd. So you want to make sure that it tells people what they're going to do. You also need to make sure that your viral video is short. Ideally, the guidelines are 2 minutes or less. However, some 3 to 4 minute videos have been successful. And then there needs to be a reason for people to share the video. According to research, people are going to share content based on one of 4 factors. The first one is that the source of information is going to spark some type of discussion. They're going to share it if they think other people are going to find it valuable. They might share it because it aligns with their identity and how they want to be perceived. Or they're going to share it because they see it as a mechanism to maintaining or growing their relationship. So if you have hopes of putting together viral videos, keep those things in mind and make sure that the videos that you're producing kind of meet those guidelines. Most businesses do some type of email marketing, and there are some definite do's and don'ts when it comes to email marketing. Let's go over some of the do's. If you're going to send an email blast to your customers or potential customers, you want to make sure that there's some type of benefit to the person for reading it. So whether you're providing them content that's going to benefit them, suggestions, that type of thing. When you're providing a benefit, a lot of times tips and tricks of the trade are great ways to go so that they get something out of the 2 minutes that they're spending reading it. It's also important that you kind of avoid the marketing cliches. Things like act now, limited time, free, and special offer. Those just annoy consumers, especially from an email marketing campaign. And if you have them in the subject line, they almost always end up in somebody's spam folder. You want to keep your emails to 50 words or less. So it's short, sweet, you're telling them what you're telling them, there's a benefit. Ideally, you're going to have some type of call to action. What is the customer going to do after they've read this email? Are they just going to file it, or do you want them to visit your website? Do you want them to make a purchase, place a phone call? It's also really important that you put your logo with it, or a text link, so it can be a logo link or a text link directly to your website embedded in the email. You need to have a mechanism for them to go back to you. You need to include the basics, the content portion of what you're doing in that text format. And you want to maintain a good image to text ratio. So it shouldn't be all text and it shouldn't be all images. Typically, a 50-50 ratio will do well from a visual standpoint, but you want to kind of break things up. You don't want all the pictures in a line or in a row. You want a little bit of text, a little bit of visual, a little bit of text, a little bit of visual. When you're getting into the don'ts, really make sure that you steer away from all those exclamation marks, all capital letters, dollar signs, and a lot of those cluttering symbols. You don't want to take up your 50 words or less with stuff that isn't necessary. You don't want to be an encyclopedia. This is an area for you to be brief. So if it is something that needs to be 14 pages, then email blast is not the place for it to be. It's really important from a spam component that you don't bury your unsubscribe link. It needs to be something that's pretty visible so that it won't end up in people's spam on a regular basis. It's important that you don't forget to include the reader in your design of it. So again, is your design aesthetic of the email blast in keeping with your brand and in keeping with your marketing and your potential customers? It has to do with a conversational tone that you're going to put based on who's going to be reading it. It's important that you also don't constantly change your layout. Your customers get used to seeing things in a certain way, so you want to make sure that there's consistency within that imaging of your email blast that goes well with your brand. If you're changing it all the time, they're going to be confused as who you are. You don't want the actual email blast to exceed 600 pixels wide. You don't want to use large images or stock photos. And you want to make sure that the visuals of your email blast don't distract from the content, which is the whole point that you're sending it in the first place. Online newsletters are a little bit different than email blasts in that they tend to be a lot longer than an email blast. This is the mechanism for you to communicate more information in a slightly different format. Online newsletters can be sent out via email links, they can be sent as attachments to emails, they can be posted on your website for download. But when you're putting one together, again, it's very important that you provide some useful information. There needs to be a benefit for the person to actually read it. You want to make sure that you keep your tone conversational, and it should be optimized for mobile, because whether they're looking at the online newsletter on a phone, a tablet, a smaller laptop, the optimization will make it easier for them to view it, and it should have a call to action as well. You want to make sure that your newsletters don't take on the look of a long email, or that your campaigns are sporadic. This is, again, something that you want to make sure that you have a regular cycle for. Is it a quarterly newsletter? Is it an annual newsletter? Is it a weekly newsletter? What is that frequently? And you have to make sure that you put it out there. You want to make sure that you don't have a bad subject line. If the subject line doesn't make sense to the potential reader, they're not going to open it. You also want to test newsletter before you send it out to make sure that it opens properly, the pictures download, that there isn't formatting issues. And most importantly, when you're sending something like this out, that you don't ignore the results that are available through your software, whether it's a Google Analytic or a Constant Contact Analytic, that you can see what are your opens, what are your click-throughs, is this doing for you what you need it to do. Podcasting is really an online radio show. And podcasting is something that can be done by anyone, anywhere, anytime. There's a lot of free software out there that will help you as far as hosting and assisting with the recording. But these are things that can be recorded directly from your cell phone. They can be done, just about anywhere. And it's a great way for a business to showcase a particular aspect of their business. If you're thinking about getting into podcasting, you want to make sure that when you're doing this, that you're measuring your success rates. How many listeners did you have? How many people have downloaded it since it was originally recorded? Typically, when you warehouse them on your website, it will help you with search engine optimization as well. So you want to keep track of those results. You also want to make sure that you keep your podcast under 22 minutes, as you will typically lose the loser if it's longer than that. Podcasts tend to have a more casual tone and feel. They also need to have an angle. What is it that you're going to be talking about? Is there a consistency? Is your podcast, kind of think of it as a radio show. What are the 3 elements of your radio show that you're going to cover in those 22 minutes? Are you always going to have a guest? Are you always going to have tips or tricks of the trade? Are you going to always have new news, which is either new things on products? What are the different segments? Believe it or not, they say that the best place to record these if you're outside of a record studio is in your bedroom. Because the reality of it is, the more stuff a room contains, the less it will echo. Large hard surfaces like tables and bare walls will actually cause the sound to bounce around. If you're in a bedroom where there's soft goods and there's more furniture and there's actual clothing, it will absorb more of the sound. So you actually get a better sound from your bedroom than you might in a quiet office. Again, keep it conversational. That kind of goes with the casual tone. And you should edit your podcast. The way we speak, many times there's likes, and pauses that aren't necessary to the podcast. And with the software that you can download, you can edit those things out. Some key things when you're doing a podcast: don't be a salesperson. The whole point of the podcast should have some level of education and benefit to the listener. If all you're going to do is sell and turn it into an infomercial, it's probably not worth your time. It's also important to be prepared. If one segment of your podcast is an interview, you have to have your interview questions prepared. You have to research the person that you're interviewing. You also shouldn't wait for listeners to find you. If podcasting is part of your marketing strategy, you need to actively promote your podcast to increase your listeners. Otherwise, the whole point of doing it doesn't exist. You need to be consistent, so don't underestimate the power of the consistency. If the podcast posts on Monday, it needs to go on Monday. Don't be afraid to include your audience in your podcast, either through a segment or through different contests. And if you're doing podcasting, especially in the beginning, you're going to make mistakes. So it's really important that you accept the fact that they're going to be there, that people are going to point them out to you, but you can't beat yourself up for them. There is a definite learning curve to podcasting. Online testimonials serve a really strong purpose for websites. There's a couple of reasons why you want to have a steady stream of testimonials added to your websites over time. First and foremost, it builds trust. If somebody else is willing to say good things about your product, your service, and your process and how it impacted their life in some way, shape, or form, it's going to build trust with a complete stranger. The number of Amazon.com reviews that get read before a purchase is just unbelievable. It's not a salesy way of giving you credibility. It will help people overcome some of their skepticism of possibly doing business with you. But when you're soliciting your testimonials, you need to make sure that they kind of are filled with the benefits to that customer. Just saying how great and wonderful you are doesn't necessarily help you build credibility. Having a testimonial that says, you know, not only was the product great, it did X for me, and it did it well. It completely met with the claims of the packaging or whatever that is. And it will help you substantiate your claims if you have testimonials that are filled with those benefits. Ideally, you're going to want to post those testimonials that are endorsed or that are going to endorse key benefits or are comparative to your competitors in the marketplace. There's nothing wrong with soliciting testimonials. You should make it easy to receive them, whether it's a place on your website for them to be posted or a place for them to email them to you, or surveys that have a comment section. Anytime you have a testimonial that you want to take that's been given from the customer to you, even if it's been solicited, you still need their permission to post it. So make sure that you follow up before posting the information. Last up on the internet, shoestring marketing, are the online review sites. So these are relatively new in the marketplace. We know them as Google Places. We know them as Yelp. There's TripAdvisor. There's quite a few. There's probably one for every industry. So for whatever industry that you're in, you need to know where your customers are posting online about you. First and foremost, you need to review your reviews. You need to know what people are saying about you. As the business owner, all of these review sites give you a place to register and comment on the reviews. You can make apologies directly to the individual. You can reach out to them in a public format to make up for any mistakes that you've made. You can thank them for saying something nice. So not only are you reviewing your reviews, you need to then participate with the reviewers, and you want to make sure that when you're soliciting online reviews that you're a little bit careful. Just because you think that somebody had a great experience, it may not be the case. And if you are too aggressive in your solicitations, you might end up with a bunch of reviews that you really didn't want in the first place. When you start this process of reviewing your reviews, it's really important that you don't freak out, because quite honestly, there's going to be some negative things on there, and you need to be prepared for that. It's also important that you never respond when you're angry. If you're in business and somebody has something negative to say about you, even if it's constructive, you tend to get your back up. So if necessary, go with the 24-hour rule where you sleep on it, or at least make sure that you've calmed down enough that you're not going to have an angry, negative response back. You really should never write reviews about yourself. You usually get caught anyways and they take them down. And it's important that you don't offer bribes for people to post good reviews, because if you're offering bribes for good reviews, your customers will know it, and it will mean your reviews are worth nothing. Next up, we have the guerrilla marketing tactics. So these three are the most common guerrilla marketing tactics that are in the marketplace. There's the acts of kindness, the contests and stunts. Again, these tend to be a little bit more short-lived, but can also go viral pretty quickly. So it's important to, if you need something like that to kickstart, that you have a really great creative person come up with what's going to be best for you. Acts of kindness are becoming more and more popular in the marketplace, and they can be anything from rewards for social engagement, some form of instant gratification to customers, or have some level of social halo. When you're looking at things of types of social engagement, Lancome launched a new loyalty program that rewarded their fans on social media by allowing its members to earn points per dollar spent and sharing products on Facebook, Twitter, and Foursquare. The instant gratification, Apple recently offered a $25 iTunes digital gift card for every Apple TV purchased online. So that's more of the buy this, we'll give you this. And then there's the more social halo act of kindness. The Tom's brand, which is a shoe that for every shoe purchased gives one away to somebody that is too poor to afford them. Then there are the random acts of kindness. These are things that tend to be one-time in nature and go after a very specific target market. Coca-Cola recently set up a Coke machine in the middle of a college campus that dispensed endless drinks and other gifts for free. And they captured great video of the people receiving the items, which then they were able to post to YouTube and build viral videos. Kleenex last year had an entire program where you could send people Kleenex packets if they had a cold. And the campaign was titled Softness Worth Sharing, and was very successful. And then Sweet Green, a DC restaurant, gave out random acts of sweetness by leaving gift certificates on cars in DC that had recently received parking tickets. So what they did is they followed a meter maid around writing tickets and put gift certificates on all of those cars to kind of offset the bad part of getting a parking ticket. So those are some examples of random acts of kindness. They work for some businesses. They don't necessarily work for all. Contests are a little bit more popular in the guerrilla marketing game. The key with any contest is that you make sure that you have an objective and that you know what it is, that your prize is worth competing for. There are some official rules. The entry process is simple, and that you utilize your social media to really make it take off. Contests can be done from everything from naming a product to raising money. Your imagination can take you anywhere that you need to go. And the last shoestring marketing tactic that we have for today is all about the stunt. So I thought the best way to talk about the stunts is to talk about 4 of the most successful that have happened in the last calendar year. You've probably heard of at least 3 of them if you haven't heard of them all. So Oscars, the Ellen DeGeneres' Oscar selfie, for those of you that don't know, it has been viewed by 32.8 million people, and this was 100% a stunt. Apparently, Samsung paid $20 million to get Ellen DeGeneres to get those people to pose for the selfie during a commercial break. Now, what I don't know is whether or not Ellen got the money herself or the money went to the Oscars organization. But that particular stunt, utilizing the new popular concept of a selfie and getting as many famous people as you can to it as possible, was a great way to showcase it. In many of the shares of this actual photo is the Samsung phone, which was the whole point of the stunt. Probably the most well-known stunt of the last year was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. It was a fundraising effort that raised over $115 million for ALS research. And there isn't anybody that was challenged, whether notable or a regular person, that didn't complete it. It was a great stunt. My particular favorite one is the DHL is faster stunt. And what they did is DHL used a special type of foil on some packages and then put them in freezing temperatures, what made it turn black. And then when the packages were taken outside by the different couriers from competing companies, whether it was UPS, FedEx, they hit them all, the warmer temperatures lighten the foil to have the tagline, DHL is faster. So as you can see in these photos, there are their competitors pushing boxes that say their competitor is faster. They were smart enough to have the video cameras and regular cameras ready. It was a great stunt. And then this one is a little bit less well known. It was very much a regional event that took place along the route of San Francisco's Gay Pride Parade in July, I believe of 2014. So they packaged all of their Whoppers with a very special rainbow wrapping, and on the inside there was a message that said, "We are all the same inside." Definitely a stunt, definitely regionalized, got them a tremendous amount of press, and in that particular community was highly successful for their longer term marketing efforts. So if stunt marketing is something that you think your organization would benefit from, the key is make sure you have something that's really creative, something that can be shared, something that's funny, something that is unusual, and just know it's a short-term thing. As great as the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge is, once people have been challenged, it's over. So that one has really run its course as far as popularity goes, and we're ready for the next one. The key to any success when it comes to marketing, especially marketing with a shoestring, is that you have to make sure that you have a purpose in every aspect of that marketing effort. You need to have calls to action. Every effort that you have should have a response designed easily from the potential customer. You need to track your progress, you need to track your results, and you need to be creative. So those are my thoughts on shoestring marketing today. Does anybody have any questions?